one of my big issues with Persona 4 was how the main story really felt like it had, it felt like there was very little stakes to the main story. And that feels kind of weird to say, considering, I mean, you know, the main story is about a serial killer going around, like, murdering people. Like, if anything, that should have a very, you know, that should seem like a very urgent thing, and something that I would very much want to solve, and at the beginning of the game, it sure did. But the issue is that as the game went on, the stakes just kind of didn't...
Let's go. Queen's
the stakes just went away, because right at the start of the game, right, you got these two murders, one right after the other. Okay, we got a serial killer, we got to take him down. So, you know, then, you know, one of your classmates, one of your friends gets kidnapped, so you go after them to try to save them from this kidnapper, who very much, you know, might be the murderer. And so, you know, you learn about the TV world and all this cool stuff, and that's when you start, you know, seeing... That's when the main gameplay loop of the game starts, right? Person gets kidnapped, you go to the TV world to save them before the killer can get them. There's just a simple problem, though. As a result of this, no one else dies. Right? Because you just... Every time someone gets kidnapped, you invariably go into the TV world and save them. Yeah, so it just ends up getting to the point where, because you keep saving everyone, no one ends up dying anymore. And so the stakes just end up falling to the wayside, because, you know, someone gets kidnapped and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna save them. And so then there's not any real stakes. It doesn't... like, the game really gets boring in the mid-game. And granted, they do try to sort of up the stakes by having, you know, a major character die around the midpoint of the game, and obviously I won't say who that is. Alright, I am going to need to do some Persona 4 spoilers for this, because there's no really other way for me to explain this, so cover your ears for the... Here, I'm gonna... While I raise my hand up, I'm talking about some spoilers, so just, if you haven't played Persona 4, mute the stream until I lower my hand. Okay. Halfway through the game, Morooka dies, and that's supposed to be the way the game tries to, up the stakes, but then it turns out that the real killer, Adachi, wasn't the one who actually killed Morooka. It was just some random student that wanted to be a copycat killer. So, okay, sure, Morooka's death does at first seemingly raise the stakes, but as soon as you find out that the actual killer isn't the one that killed Morooka, and that the person who killed Morooka, you've already captured them, it's back to having no stakes, because again, the actual, like, killer hasn't killed anyone since the very start of the game. Okay, we're done with Persona 4 spoilers. And so that's why that death around the middle of the game doesn't work to keep the stakes up. So and that's really one of the things that really bugged me when I was playing P4, and one of the reasons why I don't really like the game as much as 3 or 5. And then I had an idea. While I was playing Catherine Full Body a couple of months ago, and I thought, wait, hold on a second. This mechanic is actually really interesting, and I think would actually fit in Persona 4 extremely well and fix the biggest issue that I had with the game. God, fucking cutting this Persona 4 segment together is going to be a bit of a pain. So, in Catherine, as you climb the tower, essentially, the game takes place over the course of, the game, much like Persona, takes place in 2 separate worlds. You have the real world, which mainly takes place, in this bar called the Stray Sheep, where you hang out, have some drinks, chat with your friends, as well as strangers. And then, the second part of the game takes place inside your dreams, in this nightmare game, where you have to climb this tower to survive. And there's other people in that nightmare, but they look like sheep to you. Huh? And as you climb, you meet up with them at the various, like, landings in between the different levels, where you can catch your breath, discuss different climbing strategies and stuff like that.
Get some pizza.
Now, as you can tell based on their items of clothing as well as their voice actors, the people that you encounter in the bar are the same people that you encounter in the dream. Not all of them, right? There are a couple that I think were added in the full body edition that don't show up in the bar until the very end. But, you know, most of the guys, they show up at the bar, and then they also show up at the dreams. And when you talk to them, you can typically pick between various different dialogue options. And as you go through the game, you know, get to learn more about their stories. They're kind of like mini social links, right? Whereas as you progress through the game, you get to know these characters, you figure out, you know, why they're in this nightmare in the first place, you know, what did they do to deserve this curse, right? And eventually help them deal with their problems and become a better person and, you know, lead a better life. So in a lot of ways, they're very similar to how social links work, with one major difference. You see, in the dream, it's supposedly been that these people have been cursed for whatever reason. We don't learn that until the end of the game, right? But the idea is that, you know, you have to, every night you have to climb up this tower, and if you're not able to climb, if you, you know, lose the will to climb, and you fall, you die in real life. So, you know, you keep hearing on these news about all these people that keep dying every day from this curse. And, well, obviously you're trying to survive this curse, but also these people who you're meeting and who, you know, you might even consider your friends are now, are in this nightmare too and are very much at risk of dying.
Treasure chest.
And that risk is very much real. Because, sure, assuming you talk to them at every opportunity and you pick all the right dialogue choices, you'll be able to help them, you know, regain the will to live and teach them that they can be a better person and that they can improve their lives. And so they'll get the resolve to keep climbing and keep surviving long enough for your character to be able to eventually figure out the source of the curse and end the curse once and for all, therefore, you know, saving all the people that hadn't died by that point. And that's great. But what's more interesting, arguably, is what happens if you ignore a character. Maybe you don't see them in one of the landings because they're in an awkward spot and you just keep climbing. Or maybe you're talking to them and you pick an answer that doesn't exactly seem very helpful, and so as a result of that, if you pick the wrong answers, these characters might, you know, they'll lose the will to live, and then they'll die. Just straight up. You'll be at the bar the next day, and you'll be, you know, you can watch the news at the bar, and you know, it goes through the people that have died that night, and so it goes through a bunch of random names of just, you know, NPCs that you've never met who are dying, because, you know, again, people are dying every day from this curse. But then, at the very end, it will show you, it will tell you the name of one of the people you knew, and it will show their image on the screen, and then, you know, everyone at the bar will be like, what the f- that was the guy that came here. How? He's dead? And, like, I legitimately, the first time that happened to me, I legitimately just felt like this massive pit in my gut when this character that I'd, you know, I really wanted to see how their story progressed, they're just dead now, and you know, it's just because I wasn't able to help them as well as I could have, you know? And I think that really managed to just keep the stakes up a lot more. Now, granted, Catherine is a very short game by Atlas standards, right? It's certainly much shorter than Persona 4. So, it's obviously, you know, the stakes aren't gonna die out nearly as easily. But at the same time, like, the possibility of, like, one of these characters that I was getting close to dying was legitimately terrifying for me. And so I was, like, making sure to, like, always be talking to everyone at every opportunity, make sure I was, you know, thinking through every dialogue choice to make sure I was, you know, making the right choice, and eventually, you know, it was enough of a motivation for me to do a second playthrough where I made sure to go through and save everyone just so that I could see how their stories ended. And now we come to Persona 4. And now what I'm gonna say might seem crazy. It might seem a bit wacky, but I think it's an interesting idea. First of all, I think people should just be dying in Persona 4, right? I don't think you should be able to stop every murder. Like, much like, you know, in Catherine, like, nameless and, well, not nameless, because they do have names, but just NPCs that you've never met, never interacted with, you just keep hearing about how they keep dying in Catherine. I feel like that would be nice, right? Just, like, have the murders keep happening. Like, some people, you just don't get to them in time, and, right? Maybe multiple people get kidnapped each month, and, like, sure, you're maybe able to save a couple, including, you know, your new party member, like you do in the normal game. But, you know, you're not able to get to everyone, and so some people end up dying. And so this gives you the motivation to just, again, keep finding the killer as soon as possible, because, I mean, sure, having to constantly go into the TV world to stop people from dying isn't great, but it also means you don't have much incentive to find the killer as soon as possible. Sure, you want to find the killer eventually so that you don't have to keep doing it, but, like, if you just keep saving these people and, you know, prolonging the thing,
I see it.
Nothing really happens. There's, you know, like, whether you stop the murderer 3 months into the game or 6 months into the game doesn't actually make that much of a material difference from the character's perspectives. Like, you don't really, like, it's not like you're getting less people to be murdered, because you're not. No one's getting murdered after those first 2 victims. So, you know, it's kind of an issue. If people were constantly dying, not many, maybe 1 or 2 every month, then okay, then first of all, it would mean you'd actually have motivation. That would certainly keep the stakes higher, and also, it would make the whole reveal of the killer at the end of the game be a little bit better, because, okay, look, the killer is a great character. I love them. I think they are a fantastic character. Their role in the story is absolute shit. Alright, I'm gonna put the spoiler hand back up. Alright, so Adachi is revealed to be the killer, but then it turns out, like, he's not actually a serial killer. He killed, like, 2 women because he's a fucking incel loser, and he just, like, got mad that they rejected him, and so he killed them. And then he never kills again. He's not even a serial killer. He just killed a couple of people because he was, like, angry at them. That's not what a serial killer does. And then he never... Not only does he not kill anyone else again, he doesn't even try to kill anyone else. He just... He just fucking stands around doing nothing. And the entire plot just moves on its own without him. So when you eventually learn that he's the killer and you think you're about to have the showdown, and then you're like... And then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I've been, like, kidnapping all those people. I killed 2 people and have done nothing for the rest of the game. Like, it just feels unsatisfying. You spent fucking, like, a whole year chasing after a guy who wasn't even doing anything anymore. He stopped killing people, like, months ago. He was like, yeah, that was just a phase. And it's fucking terrible, in my opinion. And if he was actually killing people throughout the game, that would actually make it significantly better. Alright, spoilers are done. Also, we're heading into a target, so we'll continue later.
Then
Does P3 have you save regular people in retarders? Why not implement that in P4 and add more intensity? No, it doesn't. The only person you save from Tartarus is,
oh.
Well, actually, okay, we'll talk about this when I'm, once we're done with this, but yes, I will mention that. But yeah, as I was saying, letting people, like, be killed throughout the Persona 4 storyline, I think that on its own is just a pretty uncontroversial opinion, I would say, that would just straight up make the game better without really changing much about the game. It would just keep the stakes up a bit more, you know? And it is something similar to, like, you know, one of the people in chat mentioned, how in Persona 3, you have the apathy syndrome cases, and then throughout the game, right, at the start of the game, you see these people, you know, these few apathy syndrome victims here and there throughout the city, but as the game progresses, the number of apathy syndrome victims grows higher and higher and higher, to the point where, like, by the time you're reaching the end game, like, you're just walking down the streets and it's a fucking ghost town with just these fucking basically mindless zombies just like trudging about and just standing there with vacant eyes because they've just, you know, more and more people are coming down with the apathy syndrome.
Don't let it get away. Psychokinetic moves should help here.
And that, I think, was really effective in Persona 5. In Persona 3, to really keep the stakes up with regards to the Dark Hour, right? And so I think something similar to that could work. Obviously, you know, with apathy syndrome, you can actually have the physical person there and see them, and so that is very impactful. But I think, and obviously, you know, just having some names of victims that you've never heard of be, you know, read out at, you know, at the end of a month might not be as impactful, but I think it would still be, I still think it would be a nice improvement. But let's move on to my more controversial opinion. And I don't know if it's controversial, because I've never seen anyone suggest it before. So it might be something that, like, everyone's like, oh, that's a pretty good idea, but I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be controversial. I feel like in certain circumstances, your social links should be able to get killed. Okay, before you fucking shoot me, let me explain. In Persona 3, if you pick certain wrong answers during social links, not, you know, in every conversation, but very specific things, if you mess them up, or if you ignored a social link for too long, that social link would be reversed. And then that would mean you'd need to spend several days essentially trying to unreverse the social link before you could before you can continue it. And if you don't reverse the social link, if you don't restore the social link in time, it will break, and the social link is permanent, and you're permanently locked out of the social link. I would advocate for a similar system in Persona 4. However, for whatever reason, I don't know how you'd be able to, I'm not entirely sure how you'd actually, like, write it in narratively, right? How you'd rationalize this, but just if you pick certain wrong options during a social link, or you don't hang out with a social link for, you know, a long enough period of time, then, well, they die. They get kidnapped, and they're one of the people that you just can't get to in time. And that's it. They're dead, and you're locked out of the social link for the rest of the game. And if you want to do that social link, you're going to have to play the game again. And I feel like that would add in a lot of impact for the game, because as a first-time player, you wouldn't know necessarily that a system like that is in place. And so then you might accidentally have a social link die on you, and that shit would probably feel gut-wrenching. And then if you've made mistakes in the past and they just haven't caught up to you yet, then several of your social links just start dying off, and you're like, you know, like, that shit would definitely motivate both you as the player and Yu Narukami in universe to really want to take that bastard down before he can hurt more people. Obviously, the idea of just killing off a social link and being locked away from it because you picked the wrong answer is maybe a bit harsh, but at the same time, it would add so much more impact and so much more weight and urgency to the main storyline, and also to the social links, because you'd be extra careful to always make sure, oh shit, I haven't hung out with this guy in a while, I need to probably hang out with him just to be on the safe side, right? It would, on one hand, it would encourage players from not just focusing on one or two social links and actually, like, trying to, like, keep up with most social links in the game rather than just one or two, you know? The initial player shock would be crazy. I mean, yeah, because that's how it was when I was playing Catherine Full Body, and one of the fucking guys at the bar fucking died because I picked the wrong answer, or I didn't talk to him one of the days. and like then I'm just sitting there at the bar watching the news and he just fucking dies, and I legitimately just like a fucking massive pit in my stomach. But yeah, obviously I haven't really worked out the, I guess, specifics of how it would work, or, you know, how lenient or harsh it should be. But I think it would really help drive forward the theme of the story. And it would really give you some good motivation to hate the killer once they are actually revealed and you have to take them down. Like, that shit, you know, it would make, I think, that fight a lot more impactful. But man, if someone like the Tower Social Link were to be tossed to the TV and killed, it would become significantly more difficult to fuse someone like Shiva or Yoshitsune. Yeah, there's definitely some issues specifically surrounding Persona Fusion and the like. So again, I think there's some kinks that would need to be worked out, definitely. But I think the idea of having, you know, characters that you actually care about and are invested in, which in the case of Persona are the social links, right?
Surprise attack successful.
Having some way to, you know, sort of leverage that investment in the characters as a way to get you to really care about the main plot. Because I think that's the thing with Persona 4. I think it's got some extremely strong characters, but its main plot just kind of really drops the ball.
Just like I thought.
And if you could leverage some of those, you know, the love that the people have for those great characters into more engagement for the plot, I think it would be, I think it could work out really well. In P3, you end up spending day after day managing your social links and actually playing the game, locking you into a feedback loop, having to make sure you hang out with people, then go. Yeah. It would definitely need to be worked out. I'm just, I don't know. It's just a random idea that I had while I was playing Catherine. I'm not sure how well it actually worked in implementation, but I think it would be something interesting to try it. And I just think specifically for the actual plot of Persona 4, you know, a small town serial killer, I just think, you know, something like that just seems like it would lead itself very naturally to that, you know? Why would your social links be on TV too? Yes, no, I'm not saying that, yeah, hold on, let me read the chat message. Lore reason only targets those who have been shown on TV. The copycat was the only outlier behind the kidnappings. Why would your social link be on TV too? Yeah, I think obviously with how the actual plot is laid out, it wouldn't make sense, obviously. I think you would need to, well, the idea that I had was, okay, I'm gonna put the spoiler hand up again. So the one that's actually throwing people into the TV is Madarame, not Adachi. I would want one of my biggest issues with Persona 4 is that Adachi has basically zero role in the story, despite supposedly being the bad guy that you're chasing the whole game. But he just like kills 2 random people at the very start of the game and then just sits on his ass for 9 months, and I'm supposed to care about him as a villain. Like, I care about him as a character because he's a great character, but like as a villain, he just falls really flat because he doesn't actually do anything, right? So I would want a more involved role of Adachi in the game, actually going around killing people. And obviously, you know, you'd have to change the story around to make that work out. But then, you know, then that's how you could work something like that in, you know? It wouldn't be Madarame that's kidnapping, you know? But yeah, it's obviously, the logistics of the whole thing obviously need a lot of, you know, thinking through. You know, I'm not saying it's just something you just, you know, just take the game and randomly start killing off people and bing bada boom, you got a good game. Obviously, it's you know, it's a big design choice, and as a result, the rest of the game would need to, you know, change accordingly, because you can't just change something in a video game and expect it to fit right in. Obviously, changing one thing in a video game requires you to change a lot of other things to, you know, keep the actual game design consistent and make sure everything fits well together. I just think it's an interesting idea for how, you know, how you could implement something to sort of make you care
Win to deal major damage.
a bit more about the game and increase the stakes, you know? I don't know, it's just a random thing that I came up with while I was playing Catherine because I really don't like how low the stakes end up feeling in the latter half of Persona 4. Like, I don't really care about catching the killer that much by that point of the game because it's just, I'm just going around saving people, and like every time someone gets kidnapped, my friend group gets bigger. So like, if anything, the more people that get kidnapped is actually good for me because it just means I get another friend and I get another party member, you know? Like, I like there's basically very little motivation for me to actually care about catching the killer, you know? But yeah, that's just the random idea I had. I guess that's I don't know, that's basically all I wanted to say. Let's get back to searching for these targets.